This video is sponsored by Squarespace. McLaren are really trying their hardest to make this championship fight between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri as fair and equitable as possible, aren't they? To a point where it's getting pretty painful to watch. Having a clear and obvious number one is the done, typical approach for good reason, because it's a lot easier. And the team in Papaya are finding this out the hard way. So what actually happened in Monza? Were McLaren right or wrong to ask Oscar Piastri to give back that position? And with only 8 rounds now to go, is this woke nonsense going to end in tears? Well, my name's Tommo, his name's Minton. Let's talk about it. Right, full context is important here. Let's start by looking at the entire radio transcript that's relevant to the whole Lando, Oscar, pit lane, bad pit stop, blah, blah, blah. Starting on lap 45 of 53, after it was decided that both McLarens would box onto softs to give themselves the best opportunity of catching Max, it was worth extending that stint, and it was on lap 45 that Lando was first asked about coming in. WJ being Will Joseph, Lando Norris's race engineer. Lando, the gap to Verstappen is now 11.1. Lando, we will box this lap onto the soft tyre and I'll come up one. Max by this point had already served his pit stop. He was on the hard tyres and he was only 11.1 seconds behind Lando Norris. The idea is that you put Lando onto a soft and then he's got a pace advantage and can maybe catch Max towards the end. Realistically, unlikely, but you never know. And seemingly in a very nice, friendly teammate fashion, Lando said, "Did you want to box the other car first?" At the time, Lando's P2, Oscar's P3, Charles Leclerc is P4, running about 28 seconds behind Oscar Piastri, having pitted all the way back on lap 33. So boxing Oscar earlier would do more to cover off any potential threat from Charles. But the question is, why was Lando offering to box Oscar first? Was he being super uwu teammate friendly? Well, I do think there is a much more selfish, ultimately, standpoint that Lando could have been coming at this from that we'll get to in a bit. Yep, we'll do that. We'll swap it round, so stay out. So this confirms that McLaren's first choice was to box Lando first, and they weren't overly worried about covering off Leclerc by boxing Piastri first. But Lando suggested it, so they were like, why not? If the driver's up for it, who's the lead driver, who gets priority in the pit stops, and he's like, yeah, box Oscar first, you might as well. Well, only if he doesn't undercut, otherwise I will box first. There will be no undercut, confirming we are staying out. Yeah, confirm. And I mean, look, this goes with that saying. Of course, Lando isn't going to say, yeah, you can undercut me with my direct championship rival. Well, of course, why not? And not to mention with the precedent set last year, if the team had been wanting to box Piastri first to cover Leclerc and then he'd ended up undercutting Lando and been ahead of him, they would have just swapped positions back, because that's what they did in Hungary. Roles reverse, a carbon copy, if that's how things have played out. Right, I think this one's had enough. Say bye to your fans, Minton. Lap 47 of 53. So Oscar boxed on lap 46, no drama, 1.9, all good. Lando boxed on lap 47, plenty of drama, 5.9 seconds, not so good. The front left was slow, it wasn't fully tightened, and by the time they did get it tightened, he'd lost 4 seconds in the pit stop relative to Oscar, and that created a bit of a problem. As Lando was coming out of the pits, launch map, this could now be close at exit. Press the overtake button, strat 7. Not only was it close, but Oscar was ahead. And as Lando pulled out of the pits, Oscar was getting told and kept in the loop. Maybe close at exit, Lando slow stop. Oscar 6 laps to go, priority is not to drain this tyre. Lap 48 of 53. So Oscar is now ahead, and McLaren quickly decide that that is not fair. And Will Joseph assures Lando that the position will be quickly reinstated. Lando, we're going to re-establish the order, so he will let you past, then you'll be free to race. He might let you through into turn 1 this time around. And as for Oscar, he gets the instruction from Tom Stallard to return that position. Although he does make his displeasure and confusion around the situation pretty clear. Oscar, this is a bit like Hungary last year. We pitted in this order for team reasons. Please let Lando pass and you're free to race. I mean, we said that a slow pit stop was part of racing. I don't really get what's changed here, but if you really want to do it, then I'll do it. Let's have strat 7 suggest to let him through into turn 1. Let through into turn 1. This is the same as Hungary last year. I know it's painful, but you will have 5 laps remaining from now. So Oscar lets Lando through, is told they're free to race, but realistically, I think Lando was the quicker driver this weekend. He had the pace advantage on Oscar, and Oscar didn't really get a sniff. The deserving driver finished ahead. I think Lando merited being ahead of Oscar this weekend. So from that point of view, all fair, but the way McLaren handled this situation, once again, I think is far less than ideal. Are you a small business owner, prospective entrepreneur? You've just started your own thing and you need a beautiful online home. A website hosted by today's video sponsor Squarespace is of course the answer. Over 14 million entrepreneurs served worldwide in over 200 countries and territories. Invoicing, scheduling, donations, memberships, blogs, portfolios, whatever the application you need, Squarespace can absolutely help you out with some absolutely stunning templates available to make it an absolute breeze to build something really nice. And with Blueprint AI in the background to help you through the process, 24/7 customer support. What more could you want? It's free to try, give it a go. I've been using Squarespace for absolutely years and I think you should too. And when the time comes around to put your Squarespace website live to the world, head to squarespace.com/TOMMO'S to get 10% off of your very first website or domain. Now, I'm just one man, right? So I think it's more interesting to get your insight, your thoughts on this before I dive into my perspective. So I posted this on my community page last night. Well, actually, this is the second version because initially I kind of worded it as in like, should Oscar have let Lando back through? But a few of you mentioned, and it's valid, that actually the emphasis more here should be on McLaren making the decision they did, not Oscar not letting Lando back through, you know. So as of right now, the poll is at 8.7 thousand votes. So thank you very much for voting. Make sure you subscribe to the Tommo YouTube channel so you can get involved in these community polls that I like to stick out. I like to get you lot involved just as much as me, right? Were McLaren right or wrong to ask Oscar to return his position to Lando after that botched pit stop? 28% of you saying right, 72% of you say they were wrong to do so. And on top of that, 240 comments. So thank you very much for engaging. Here's a few that I've picked out that you lot seem to like. Starting with @MeAndMag. Honestly, the thing they should have done was double stack pit stop. Then Lando would have pitted first and kept position, which is fair, and Oscar would have come out ahead of Leclerc. I do see where you're coming from with this one, Mia, but I would say that you are introducing, you know, more potential for things to go wrong with a double stack. Yes, you are mandating and making sure that Lando stays ahead of Oscar, absolutely, but what if Lando's pit stop messes up? Then you're holding up both cars. You're also giving less time for them to turn around the second pit stop for Oscar, which opens up the window for possible failure. Like, I've not seen any numbers around this, but I imagine double stacking leads to more potential failure than single pit stops, because you are asking the team to go back to back, which is going to be more mentally fatiguing, more stressful. Like, of course it is. And the thing is, at the time, at lap 45, when the pit stop messages were first coming out, the gap between them was just over 3 seconds, which isn't really enough to get a clean double stack. It's more like 5 or 6. You need to really kind of get the first car in, get them turned over, get them out, and cleanly and efficiently, without faffing about too much, get the second car in. So in the situation, in the context, I do understand why McLaren weren't willingly prepared to give themselves that potential stress. You know? At Aaron OW, it feels like every time McLaren tries to do the right thing, it just ends up backfiring for them. And this is the exact kind of scenario that makes the whole two number ones approach so difficult to stick by, especially when they are the two sole competitors in this Drivers' Championship fight. Oh my God. I know Max won the race and it's going to be a bit of a one-off. I don't think he's going to have the pace consistently over the rest of the season to challenge, but I wish he did, because these two faffing about at the front with papaya rules and all this nonsense, Max just coming in and just taking the fight to him would be absolute cinema. We're not going to get it, unfortunately, which is a big shame. And look, again, the driver who deserved to finish ahead finished ahead, so you can have no complaints about that. Lando was the better driver this weekend. However, Oscar can understandably reflect upon this and be like, hang on a minute, to quote Tom Stallard, is this really the same as Hungary last year? And even more crucially, Oscar said, we said that a slow pit stop was part of racing. So does this mean McLaren have gone back on their word? Because if so, that is one way to destroy trust with your driver. And look, they've got no Drivers' Championship to worry about, McLaren. It's going to be one of them. They've already won the Constructors. They can win it mathematically in Baku, literally the next race. But what they can do is cause irredeemable damage to the trust of their drivers if they don't manage this appropriately. The drama, the bad headlines, me doing this video talking about it, like, it should all be about, you know, another comfortable podium, double podium for McLaren, lovely jubbly. All of a sudden there's a situation, a problem again, and a driver seemingly being undermined if Oscar what he's saying is true. If it was agreed that bad pit stops would just be considered part of racing and it wouldn't come into the whole fairness and swapping back positions, then they have gone back on their words. And, you know, it's Oscar's word against McLaren's here, but it doesn't sound great, does it? At tyre 9, Norris asked for Piastri to get pitted first to give him a chance of a safety car. The only reason Norris got undercut in the first place is because his stop was 3 seconds slower than Oscar's. This was just unlucky and not comparable to Hungary 24, and guilt tripping their championship leader to swap for their golden boy was unjustified. So Lando was asking McLaren if they want to box Oscar first in order to give him one extra lap of window for a potential safety car to benefit from. Like, that's actually a very valid potential reason from tyre 9 and makes way more sense than Lando wanting to help Oscar conserve P3. So Lando staying out for as long as possible, getting Oscar in first, more chance if there is a safety car, Lando can get a cheap pit stop and maybe jump Max. I agree that it was unlucky. I agree that it's not the same as Hungary 24, similar but crucially different in one specific way. But what I don't agree with is the whole Lando golden boy thing. Look, maybe this is British bias speaking, who knows, right? I don't see this. I see this parroted quite a lot online, people thinking that McLaren really want Lando to win and don't really want Oscar to win. Really? I mean, why would they choose to jump through all these hoops to preserve this sense of equity if they just wanted Lando to win? Look, Lando's been at this team for 4 years longer than Oscar, so would some team personnel have more loyalty to Lando than Oscar? Probably, yeah, and absolutely understandably. But do I think the people that actually matter at the very top in terms of decision making, Zach Brown, Andrea Stella, do I think they have a bias one way or the other? No, I don't. At Helix Nebula, diabolical, title fight and 8 races to go. No way that you're letting your biggest rival past. Imagine that radio message to any past champion. They all would have laughed and kept the position. So Helix is putting the emphasis on Oscar here. And look, Max Verstappen was asked the question after the race, and he said, from my side, a bad pit stop can happen the same way an engine can break, or if you make a mistake on your own. That's just part of racing. So yeah, I had to laugh a little that he had to give the position back. I'll leave it there. I mean, no way in a billion years is Max giving that back, obviously. I mean, remember when Red Bull asked him to give Checo P6 in Brazil? He was having absolutely none of it. And that is a pretty consistent trait of most World Championship, multiple World Championship drivers, that selfishness, I guess, that absolute dedication and that preparation to go beyond the team, against the team, if need be, to get the job done for yourself. And Oscar definitely could have gone against team orders. He could have executed his free will, faced the music afterwards. I think he would have had a valid argument if beforehand they'd agreed that slow pit stops are part of racing. I mean, it's risky, but it feels like it's going to have to happen. One of these drivers is going to have to go against the team and act purely in self-interest at some point this season. 8 races to go, that window's only going to get narrower. Oscar had an opportunity here to take that and didn't, which kicks the can down the road. If either driver, I think, is more likely to act self-interestedly and do that and go against the team, I think it's probably Oscar, actually. I still think Oscar's got it in him, and I actually think this instance, again, if McLaren communicated to him and his understanding was that a bad pit stop's part of racing and that shouldn't be included, is he gonna do the favour next time? I don't know if he will. So what do I think? Well, look, there's levels to this, right? We need to discuss solutions here. And I have credited McLaren before because I like the fact that they are giving the strategy teams, be that Will Joseph, race engineer, or Tom Stallard and his side of the garage, they are given a degree of autonomy to make their own decisions. For example, when Lando did the one stop in Hungary, which ended up being the preferred strategy in the end, McLaren didn't ask Lando to give Oscar the position back, even though he went with the known 2-stop that was probably going to be the right choice. It wasn't the right choice. In terms of the strategy team made that gamble and it paid off. And also Lando delivered the lap time when he needed to preserve the tyres and get it across the line. But what Sunday proved is that clearly they don't include the pit team as part of this. They consider the pit team to be separate, right? Which kind of makes sense because it is the same pit team. It's not like different people service the 2 cars, right? It's the same pit team, whether it's Lando coming in or Oscar. But they could, if they wanted to, be like, look, when you come in, Lando, that's your pit team, and if they mess up, then that's as like your strategy team messing up, that's like you messing up, whatever. And then Oscar, when you come in, exactly the same for you, right? They could choose to do it that way, but in this instance, they didn't choose to do it that way. But then again, look back to last week in Zandvoort, let's extrapolate the logic from this. Lando Norris breaks down, something completely out of his control goes wrong. It's not the strategy, it's not the pit stop, it's not him as a driver. A part that McLaren were responsible for, not Mercedes, the oil connector, wasn't it, pipe that failed for Lando. If McLaren were preserving absolute fairness and equity, they should have asked Oscar to box to retire the car. Now, I know that's ridiculous. I'm not saying that they should do that, but I'm just saying when you challenge the logic and take it to that extreme, which that is an extreme, asking Oscar to box, it checks out. McLaren literally had the free will to control that situation and box Oscar to retire the car in the same way that they had the free will to control this situation and ask Oscar to let Lando back through. Now again, why didn't they ask Oscar to box to retire the car? Well, he would have said no, first and foremost. They don't seem to, as far as I'm aware, have a manual override to break the car from the pit box. Maybe they do. But also that backlash would have been absolutely insane. It would have been, it would have been a great video. I'm not going to lie, right? If McLaren had done that, this video would have popped. But then how do you stay intellectually consistent? Where is the line? Where do you draw that line? And would you have asked Oscar to give Lando the position back? Because Lando had a bad pit stop in the final race of the season, where this potentially dictates the championship. Okay, so this is a stress test now because they've done something and it's like, does it set a precedent? What if there were 4 races left instead of 8? What if there were 2 races left instead of 8? What if there was 1 race left? How do you approach this situation? How do you expect Oscar, there's no way Oscar's giving this back to give away the championship, is there? We said that a slow pit stop was part of racing, to which Tom Stallard misrepresents Hungary. Hungary was not the same. McLaren are in a privileged position to be able to have this kind of ooh-woo friendly fight. This is missing some spark. From a purely entertainment point of view, we need one of these drivers, Lando or Oscar, to go against the team and just do something self-interested to really ignite this spark, to break that trust. But actually, I do think there is a better way. Look, the Constructors is done. It's a wrap. Okay, it's probably going to be done in Azerbaijan. McLaren just need to stick to the let them race ideology, but actually follow through with it. They need to, in my opinion, treat each side of the garage like a separate team. Andrea Stella sit in the middle, making sure there's no cross-pollination. Allow Lando, his strategy team, and everyone on his side to work purely in his self-interest. The same on Oscar's side. That pit team is your pit team when it's your pit stop, Lando. That pit team is your team when you pit stop, Oscar. Otherwise, keep everything separate. They can strategize against each other. They are free to race. Give us that. Not only is that more exciting from a fan point of view, but when you truly do allow these teams to race, like McLaren keeps saying that they're going to do, then there can be no accusations of bias, not sticking to your words or any of that, right? You just make it very, very clear and obvious and you let them go at it. And I think that preserves belief that both drivers can have in the team long term versus this current situation where are they telling the drivers one thing in the pre-race briefing but then doing something different on track? Stop trying to micromanage, take the stabilizers off, 8 to go, let them at it, lads. Come on. That's what I think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.